Hi, everyone. Welcome to the pit. I have with us today Chief Master Sergeant retired Jason David, and it is an honor for me to have you as our guest today. Welcome to the pit.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It's like we've known each other for a long, long time.
It's been a few years,
Hmm.
especially in the DA position. I remember you would come teach there, and you were my predecessor's mentor. And
Hmm.
it's cold out here without one. I'll say that.
Okay.
So, so for those who do not know you, could you please introduce yourself and let them know who you are?
Yeah, sure. My name is Jason David. Like you said, Vanity, I'm a retired chief, but that's not what I do anymore on this side. I actually went into the world of information technology, which is a far departure from the job I did when I was in the military. And that was serving as a radio and television broadcaster. If you can't tell, I sound like a cartoon. That's half the reason why.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
All right. Um, all right. Do you have an AFSA story? And if yes, could you please share it?
So this is the most beautiful thing about AFSA. And I'm going to tie it into what I do today and why it's so important to be a member of the Air Force Sergeants Association just in general. When I was a young non-commissioned officer, and this is in the Wayback Machine, the AFSA meetings were held at the club, right? The
Mm-hmm.
enlisted club. And when I was serving, I know I don't look as old as I actually am, but there was a lot of beverages that were handed out at the club. And that's how we held most of our meetings. Obviously times had changed as the military had gone through reorganizing and reprioritizing, what right looks like. But I will tell you that the beginning of my military career, as far as networking is concerned, happened at the first AFSA meeting that I was dragged to against my will. I said, there's no reason for me to go hang out with these folks. I think that they are probably just goofing off. It's just an excuse to get away from work. And then I sat in that first AFSA meeting and realized that half the things that were broken on base were fixed at AFSA, not necessarily in the meeting minutes, but through the relationships that were being built from the guy at CE and the person at the CSS, the person that worked at the command post and the commander's exec that were all hanging out at the same place at the same time. As the years went by, I realized just how powerful networking in the military as a skill set becomes as you start traveling through your journey from staff sergeant to tech sergeant. When you hit master sergeant, if you can't network, you're probably not going to get things fixed for your airmen. That's just the truth. Like having a guy at the MPF usually comes from an AFSA meeting, right? Being able to fix something finance wise is probably a phone call through the senior NCO network. If you're a staff or tech sergeant and you have friends that are working at CE and something is broken in your building, you could wait for the trouble ticket system, or you can call your friend that you had, boss and buddies wing night that you invited your AFSA friend with you. So again, the beauty of networking is not lost upon me, but it's not really showcased as the true benefit of being a member of AFSA.
It's amazing. Yeah. I have to saying that say that you can tie your net worth to your network.
For certain, and we'll get into that too. Post military career, it's the most invaluable skill that the military can teach you.
Awesome. All right. So now we're going to move into the pillar of leadership. All right. So you led through communications and public affairs. How is influence different from authority?
So there's a couple of ways to look at leadership and authority, whether it's formal or informal, right? I was blessed with the opportunity to serve as a chief master sergeant, even more blessed to serve as a defense command senior enlisted leader, which is not even a regular Air Force position. That's above the combatant command that is with a D agency like a DISA or DLA, or in my case, the DMA. And that allows you to see things from a very, very different joint perspective, which I just absolutely loved. The reason you and I became friends is I needed some Air Force in my life. I needed to get out of the joint world and give back to our airmen as much as I could. So I'm forever thankful for the opportunities that you provided to me as the DA.
You need to get out of that my world too. That's why I applied for the job. It's overfilled that cup.
Yeah.
Like it's a great feeling.
So let's get into the authority versus leadership versus influence conversation, right? You can have informal authority by your reputation alone. And oftentimes you are recognized as that informal authority as the go-to person, the subject matter expert. That sort of influence carries with you throughout the rest of your professional career. There are folks that are in the military that, their function is not necessarily defined by their rank. A great example is people in the medical field. Do you care if a neurosurgeon is a captain or a
Nope.
colonel? You don't,
Nope.
right? Because their specialty moves right to the front. The same thing can be said, not necessarily in the medical field, but with anything that you do. I will tell you that before ChatGPT was a thing, that was me, right? And so my informal authority came from the fact that I could write like anyone's business and I could help people from all AFSCs and different career fields shine to the best of their ability. Obviously, not fibbing, right? But definitely polished so that it was presentable to things like below the zone panels or Airman of the Quarter, NCO of the Quarter, CGO of the Quarter, and of course the promotion boards, right? So that was a skill set that I held in that informal authority. Now, with that said, once you make it to staff sergeant and you get that license to lead, right? That's when business happens, right? And if you couple what is naturally given to you as a non-commissioned officer or a CGO, because those ranks are very, very similar as far as authority is concerned. A tech sergeant and a lieutenant, a tech sergeant and a captain normally hang out with each other, through the ranks because they're growing, but they also have enough influence and enough authority to publish orders. I will say that you can't really do effective leadership without a little bit of that subject matter expertise, not on the enlisted side, right? So they're coupled together. And I do think that it's a wonderful thing to be able to promote in the military. It's even better if you know what you're talking about, because then people will come to you for answers again and again.
Hear that?
And if I didn't answer the question correctly, I'm long-winded. We've been
No,
friends a long time.
I think you answered the question great. All right. So let's see.
I got a joke for you. Do you know why cows have bells?
Nope.
Because their horns don't work.
Oh, oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Uh,
Every time I do a podcast with someone, I got to sneak one in.
like my first thoughts went to like moo. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, that's not gonna work. All right. So how did combat and earning the Purple Heart shape your leadership philosophy?
Okay. So if you've read my bio or if you know anything about me, I am a Purple Heart recipient. I was combat wounded. I've had 13 surgeries. My spine, my hips, my shoulder, and my knee are all titanium. You wouldn't tell, but I like from sitting, but I have to walk with a cane. I was actually medically retired after 20 years, but they let me stay in long enough to just keep kicking down the door to fight for folks. And I just love the Air Force for allowing me to do that. Actually, I give a lot of credit to, at the time, Secretary Mattis, who's the Secretary of Defense. During his tenure, he actually signed a piece of paper that said, if you have Purple Heart recipients on active duty, leave them alone. Don't medboard them. Obviously, he left office and the policy didn't get rescinded necessarily, but it kind of like faded into the background. And eventually, the medboard process caught up with me. But I was able to make it from master to senior to chief as a Purple Heart recipient, and that definitely helped me look at scenarios a little bit different. I will tell you that I suffered kind of a down, gloomy period when I was in the hospital for about 8 months, right? On and off. And surgery after surgery, I just wanted to give up. And you know me, I've got a pretty positive, resilient personality. But I tell you, when you are told by the doctors you won't be able to walk again, it does something to you, like in your mind. And it's not a good thing. I will say that because of the love and the care that I got from the Air Force Medical Service and the Defense Health Agency just as a whole, and programs like the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program, I was able to get back on my feet and then just appreciate the things I'd never appreciated when I wasn't hurt. A great example of resetting your perspective as a non-commissioned officer, as a member of AFSA, as an enlisted professional, is when you deploy. So we don't deploy anywhere near as much as we did during the OIF, OEF wars, but most people who deployed went on their combat deployments and came back, and there was this bizarre sensation of time freezing when you return back home. Happens to long TDYs too. So you're at the senior NCO Academy right now, right? And
Yes.
you go away for weeks and weeks on end, and you come back and you get to your work center, and everything happens in slow motion, because when you're at school or you're on deployment or you're gone on a really long TDY, everything happens so fast. There's a schedule, people are in your face, and you get back to home station and you hear some of the things people complain about, and you start thinking to yourself, especially on the deployment side, I was just avoiding indirect fire yesterday, and you were complaining about the copy machine, right?
Yeah.
And so that yields itself a little bit of perspective. I will say me getting hurt also provides perspective in airmen that are hurt physically, airmen that are hurt mentally, because you have to put a different hat on. I got hurt really bad. I'm now seeing everyone else that got hurt bad too. And I'll give you one senior citizen moment for me. You ever had back pain, Vanity?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Could you talk to yourself when you were 20 and say, you will never understand the feeling of back pain as the 30-year-old version of me, the 40-year-old version of me? It wouldn't make sense to you as a 20-year-old, right?
I ran today and everything hurt.
Exactly. That's when you know you've passed 30, when things start like going in reverse. Like
Yeah.
before, you would jump and you would bounce, and your knees were fine. And then after 30, you bounce and then you start to move even slower. And then things start creaking and popping. That's life. Welcome to being an NCO, right? Welcome to being a senior NCO, even more so. So hopefully that answered your question on some detail on some level. But yes, being a combat wounded veteran, 100% changed my perspective. But it didn't change who I was as a leader. It just gave me more emotional intelligence to pay more attention.
Hey. All right. What is one leadership mistake that you made early on that made you a better later?
I don't know if this was a mistake, but I will tell you that my personality today is the same personality that Airman First Class David had when he was at his first base, right? I was still probably just as jovial. Probably I had less hair, that's for sure. But I'm very proud of this. This is my post-military retirement gift to myself
It
is
looks great.
getting a haircut once every 2 months, right? So I will say that my mistake was not adapting to my environment. I luckily was able to get from A to B, from airman basic all the way to chief master sergeant through a series of either bad luck or good luck, bad supervisors, good supervisors, and just studying the hell out of those tests and just presenting my very best self I could every day to the military. My mistake was that I wasn't situationally aware of what was going on around me as I was moving through the Air Force. I was hyper focused on me. I was a below the zone person. I made staff sergeant the first time. Like I was God's gift to the U.S. Air Force. At least that's what I thought in my head. Right. A couple years went by, got ranked up a little bit, and then I got hurt. I got hurt, and I got hurt really, really bad. And it took me back to trying to appreciate all the gifts that were given to me, the leniency, the supervisors who cared for me, the nurturing. And it's like I had to grow up really fast getting hurt because when I came back to work, and I got hurt as a tech sergeant, right? I was going back into a scenario where I couldn't be the best and I couldn't present my best self and I couldn't be involved in everything under the sun. So what was I going to do? Well, like every good leader, I think in the Air Force, a natural switch happens around, staff to tech and then tech definitely to master. You start aiming your attention at the airmen. What am I supposed to do in this Air Force? What am I going to be remembered for? No one cares that I was a chief. No one cares that I was promoted to senior, but that senior airman who gets out at 4 years is definitely going to remember Tech Sergeant David. And that Tech Sergeant David picked him up from the airport when he PCS'd in and invited him over for barbecues on the weekends. And that's how we impress upon the rest of America that we care, because we do. We're a family. But I wasn't embracing that family moment when I was a young NCO. At that midway point, something clicked and said, you need to start acting like a grown up. And I did.
Awesome. That's awesome. All right. So now we're going to move into the followership pillar. So, what does good followership look like to you?
Good followership is embracing the fact that every leader serves someone else, right? I will tell you that one of the humorous things that I did when I was serving that kind of got me in trouble sometimes, but mostly ended up working into my favor as I got older and more senior. I think you probably remember this too. When you and I first met, I called you ma'am.
I don't remember that
Mhm.
because it happened so much that I just
Well, so this is why every single person I have ever met in the Air Force while serving, regardless of rank, was going to get a sir or a ma'am from me. Every one of the students that I taught for you, I called them all sir and ma'am. And here's the reason why. Unilaterally, every airman deserves your respect. Every person that's willing to sign their name on the dotted line absolutely demands that you give them equality on a intellectual level. Sure, there's rank barriers that stop you from getting into meetings and whatnot. But if you ever see the colonels and the chiefs that retired that have just absolutely packed retirement rooms, it's those folks that are like, oh my God, that colonel was such a nice guy or nice lady, right? Or that chief, that's my homie, right? You know, the people that have direct impacts on lives when they treat you equal to them intellectually. Again, rank is always going to be a barrier in some circumstances, but I never let that be the case. There was never an airman that could not talk to me. There was never a lieutenant colonel that could never talk to me. And I made sure they understood that I could talk to them.
yeah.
hmm
Yeah, it's good. All right. How can military members lead up effectively without overstepping?
So that's a catch 22. If you are a staff sergeant and you see your master sergeant do something that you don't agree with, you might be right or you might be wrong because you don't know what's happening in that master sergeant's head. You don't know what they got going on in their life. You don't know who they're responsible to. You only see things from your perspective. So if you would like to effectively lead as a follower, this is a practical exercise you must accomplish in order to get to that goal. You must put yourself in that person's shoes on a regular basis. You need to talk to the person. So if you're the junior person, you need to talk to the senior person and ask them, just how much stress are you actually under? Because I'm concerned about you, right? That's one way to do it. Or you could say, hey, is there anything I can take off your plate, and give them the opportunity to list off the things that they do, or ask for guidance on how to do something their way instead of your way to see if potentially you might be wrong, right? There are some cases where it's just cut and dry. The people above you are not leading effectively, so you need to step up and lead from the ground up. But it's all an investigation, right? It's all discovery. It's all research that you have to do. The most effective followers that help shape the mission are those people that I told you about at the beginning that are subject matter experts that wield informal authority, that can use their professional charisma, or they can use their subject matter expertise, or they can just use a kind demeanor to end up getting to your goals. Hopefully that makes sense, right?
It does. It really does. And it is a you're right, it is a touchy topic because you can think that somebody is not leading right, and it's more ways to get to 5. Like, it doesn't have to be 2 plus, it could be 2 plus 3, 4 plus 1,
Mhm.
but that don't mean that they're not.
I love your math algorithm because here's the thing. Not every leader that you serve is going to treat you right. Not every leader that you serve is going to be correct in their assumptions and their leadership decisions. What you need to do is see the bigger picture. This is life. This is not checkers. This is chess, right? I'm not saying that you need to manipulate the scenario to get around certain people, but there are ways to strategically place you, your motives, your initiatives, and your desired end states in a row so that if you know that this person that's in charge of you, well, they're PCSing it, PCSing in 3 months. Okay. Well, maybe if I want this new wing to the building built, maybe I might wait 3.5 months, right? Certain things like that.
All right. What habits separate dependable team members from average ones?
Dependable team members. So you can't teach accountability, but you can reinforce the behavior, right?
Mhm.
If someone just does not in their soul want to take responsibility for their actions, you ever have like a dog that just keeps doing bad things over and over again, right?
Yeah.
Some dogs do not want to be trained, right? You ever have a child or a cousin or a sibling that is just not behaving, right? They start behaving not after a series of punishment, they start behaving as they mature as a person. So you are not going to change them, but they can change them, right? And all we can do is reinforce positive behavior. If you are a non effective team member, I don't know what to tell you other than it's time to grow up, right? But if you're a member of a team and you're trying to encourage someone else to do better, setting the example isn't a catchphrase. Setting the example gives them a reference point in their mind to see what right looks like. Should they choose to get there, you can reinforce that behavior. But it's your job to hold the standard so that they have something to say, well, here's an option in my mind. Maybe I'll go this way.
Yeah. All right. So these questions are going to come from the perspective pillar. All right. So many veterans struggle with the loss of mission and structure. How did you rebuild your purpose in your next chapter?
Hmm. Okay. Very good question. You have a number of options when you get out of the military. And so I'm going to give you a mini TAPS briefing like right now,
I'm here
right?
for it.
Okay. So this is what they don't tell you in the transitions assistance program, regardless of what base you go to. There's not a chart that shows you different paths and funnels. They just say, hey, if you'd like to file for VA disability, here's an option for you. How to make your resume the best it can be and go land a job out there. Those are options. What we don't talk about is taking time for yourself. That's option one. That should always be option one. And taking time for yourself looks a whole different amount of ways. You could take time off. And if you retire from the military and you were rated by the VA, that's the money here, that's the money there. You could go back to school full time as a student. Doesn't matter if you have a degree. If it's not in the field that you want or it's not helpful toward getting toward your goals, maybe you don't want to be a career assistance advisor. Maybe you don't want to be a medical radiology technician. Maybe you want to be someone that is running for Congress. Maybe you want to be a pharmacist, or maybe you want to be an entrepreneur. The options when you retire or separate are unlimited, and those services are only available to veterans. So I'll give you a fun example. There's a program called Veterans Readiness and Employment. If you have a disability that the VA rates you on, you can apply for that, and they will send you to school if you're trying to find a job and you don't qualify for it. The VA will help you get there. If you separate and you're looking for work, but you can't find the job you're looking for, you don't have to apply for regular unemployment compensation. There's actually a program just for service members. It's called UCX, Unemployment Compensation for Ex-Service Members. It's like 3 times the rate of regular
Wow.
unemployment. So instead of like $500, you're looking at $2,000. It's based on the 30-year rate for your pay grade, right? So if you're a master sergeant, it's how much money you would make in your base pay as a 30-year master sergeant. Sometimes it's more money than you make on active duty. And again, it's temporary. It's up for a year to 2 years, depending on what state you're in. But the options out there are very helpful as you transition from having a mission to not having a mission. A couple other novel things that you can do is, now that you have your personality back, your life, you're able to grow this hair, right? You can do some of the things that you might have thought about as a military person, but couldn't. So you can start your own business, or you can start a nonprofit. And there are programs that both the DoD and the VA will help you get there, either through grants or through processes to help you establish what it is that you want. I can tell you that most of my military friends, we all own LLCs. We all are CEOs of small companies. Not only does it help for doing smaller jobs and, assigning it to, that company, it's also just another way for you to kind of spread your wings and see what else is out there in the universe. The transition is just as hard as losing a family member. The veteran suicide rate is skyrocketing every year. It's more than 22 a day. And that's not just people who separate, it's also retirees as well. That loss of purpose, that loss of mission, that loss of identity, it doesn't have to go away. There are avenues for you to be able to retain that. The Veterans of Foreign Wars, the American Legion, the Wounded Warrior Project, RWB. There's even golf programs that I belong to, the SMJ, the Salute Military Golf Association, Move United. There are a number of nonprofits out there that will still instill that kind of camaraderie that you'll miss in the military. And of course, there's other options, like maybe I'll apply for a GS position, or maybe I'll apply for a defense contractor position. All those things keep you attached to this organism known as the military. But maybe that's not what you want. Maybe you want to go open a farm, and there are options and resources out there to do it. But you have to brace for impact, because it is very similar to the loss of a loved one. That same amount of stress and drama that's in your heart that happens when you lose a member of your family, it's equally as hard when you separate. And right now you might be thinking, if you're listening to this, it can't possibly be that bad. I will tell you that I was depressed for an entire 3 months when I retired. I was just the command senior enlisted leader working for a 3-star SES equivalent. And I had all the office, the responsibility. I didn't really care, about the pomp and circumstance, but the amount of responsibility I had, it defined me. Right. And when I lost it, or when I transferred it to the next person, I felt like, well, what am I doing here? What's my purpose? And that hurts. It hurts a lot. And so what I do now is I still reach out to folks like yourself. I do podcasts at least once a month. That's not necessarily the solution, but what worked for me is continuing to be the non-commissioned officer that I think I was always meant to be, which is giving back to our airmen. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, I've got, 5,000 or 6,000 folks on LinkedIn, and my reach is actually closer to 500,000, because all I post is benefits for service members that are transitioning from one place to another. Even that program I talked to you about, UCX, I think it was shared like 2,000 times. The reach was 300,000 in 4 days, because people still need information to help them move from A to B.
All right. So the program UCX,
Mhm.
how would the average person who was not linked to you, how would they know about it?
They wouldn't, which is why my posts go as viral as they do. So the goal of the Transition Assistance Program is to front load you with as much information as you can get as you transition from active duty, guard, or reserve to the civil sector. The problem is it's not long enough. It's basically a couple-day workshop for something that oftentimes you would need to prepare for a long time. So we talked about getting out of the military equating to like the stress of losing a loved one, a family member. That healing process takes months. Do you really think that giving yourself 3 or 4 days mentally to just get ready to move on is going to happen? You spend more time getting ready for a PCS than you do getting ready to get out of the military. So just like when you PCS from one place to another, that out processing checklist goes like 30 days out. You need to start doing that too. And if you tell yourself that you don't deserve things like SkillBridge, that it's not worth networking early in your career, I will tell you that if you came in as an airman and started networking on LinkedIn, right, professionally as an A1C or an one striper or no stripes at all, and retired as, a tech sergeant, master sergeant, or all the way up to chief, your professional network would be so large that your network would be worth truly your net worth, because you'd be able to get placed through referrals. And if you Google what percentage of jobs go to referrals on the outside, it is 60%. 60% of jobs aren't even listed on Monster or Indeed or LinkedIn. They just go to referrals or internal hires. And those internal hires are often referrals. So if you know someone who knows someone who knows you, that increases your probability of success. The power of networking through AFSA is the reason that I am as successful as I am today.
It's awesome. It's definitely
You like how I tied that back? That was just for you.
I love it. It's scary. It is definitely scary. So I'm happy that it is, like, good unemployment programs out there. When it is dark, it's not dark and rainy and, like, all like, it's not what I'm saying? Like, it's just a little dark, but a little help, and so
Yes.
that's great to know.
And I will say this isn't like I don't make any money off of LinkedIn. I don't make money off of any of the help I give. But if you don't want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you don't have to. But I would recommend that you at least follow some of the things that I do and look at my featured posts. Those right there have a combined, I think it's 1.5 million views from service members for helpful advice, tips, tricks, and even checklists to make sure your transition is much smoother on the way out the door. So again, my name is Jason David. Just type that into LinkedIn and then look at my featured posts. You'll see them all down at the bottom. Those are the ones that resound with people the most.
It's definitely informative for sure. All right. In your opinion, what do service members misunderstand the most about civilian life?
That you can do whatever it is that you want to do. So while you're in the military, and this is this is a very strong message for my friends that are part of AFSA, right? And especially if you're enlisted. So throughout my military career, I was told, oh, you can't because you're enlisted. You can't because you're this rank. Oh, you can't because you only have at the time a community college of the Air Force degree. You can't because you don't have a master's degree. You only have a bachelor's degree. People love to tell you that you can't do stuff while you're serving in the military, right? But I'll tell you that on the outside, nobody cares at all. And when I say nobody cares, there are very few times where your military rank is going to land you outside of a few choice defense contracting jobs. It's not going to land you a job at Target in management, right? It's not going to land you a job at Pfizer, the medical company, as, a consultant if you don't actually have the skills to back it up. I would say it this way. If you looked at a large company like Microsoft, right? Like a big, gigantic company, do you know there's over 4,000 different types of IT functions, right? But if someone said, hey, I'm from Microsoft, you would just assume they're from the computer company. You don't really know what job they're doing. You don't know if they're a product specialist, if they're an architect for web design. You don't know if they're a programmer, developer. You don't know if they're sales, right? You don't know if they're HR, all the AFSCs that the Air Force has. You don't know if they're any of those jobs. And if you didn't know, Microsoft has almost as many jobs as the Air Force. But just like they see us, we see them the same way. When you say, I'm Air Force, they're like, oh, that person served in the military. Your specialty and occupation, unless you are a finely tuned specialist, you're just an airman. And half the time, they won't even call you airman. They'll call you soldier. And that's the truth, right? So what do people not understand on the outside? That's why your networking is so important, because once you're done, your identity is not tied to your military rank. It's not tied. Like my rank comes in handy because I was a chief and we know each other and I'm giving back to an Air Force community. But if I try to give at the local Y, these people don't care who I am. They don't care that I was serving in the military. They don't even know what military decorations look like, right? So the fact that I'm a Purple Heart recipient, maybe it touches half of them who have a military tie. The other folks are like, that's nice, must be pretty, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can do whatever it is that you want on the outside. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't. I'll give you one prime example of what I mean by that. When I retired, I applied for 2 GS-15, one senior executive service position, and one C-suite position at an IT firm. I had people in my corner, even as a retired chief and command senior list leader, tell me that I didn't rate those jobs. That's
What does
kind of
that
awkward.
mean? I didn't rate it.
I didn't rate those jobs. I didn't qualify in their opinion, right? And unfortunately, the people that told me they were active duty as well, both enlisted and commissioned. They told me I didn't my position was not equal to those positions. I will tell you that I was referred and received job offers for every position.
Believe it.
Right? And so the people who told me that I couldn't do something, their ceiling, they applied to me. And had I let their ceiling become my ceiling, I would have never achieved, the titles and the job positions that I did post-military. I left the U.S. Air Force as an active duty service member, went into a different field. I got some certifications and went into a field that I'd never been in. I became a customer experience manager at an IT firm. Within 6 months, I became a CXO, which is a customer experience officer, as a part of the leadership team. A year after that, I became the vice president of the company. 6 months after that, I was the senior vice president of the company. 1 year after that, I transferred to an even bigger company as its executive director, right?
That's awesome.
That's not the end of the story. 30 days ago, I was hired by Adobe, like the PDF
Wow.
people, as their senior federal strategist, right? And so now I work for a Fortune 500 company, and I was just active duty a couple years ago. How did I get here? I didn't let other people's ceilings become my ceiling. And when I looked at the civilian world, I did not identify myself as a chief or as an airman. It had to be Jason David again. And what am I bringing to the fight?
Congratulations.
Nah, it's
That's
just me.
awesome.
It's just me.
That's awesome. I'm happy for you.
But if I can do it, of all people, anyone can do it. Just have to have the right mindset.
All right. How has advocacy for veterans benefits reshaped how you review responsibility after service?
Not everyone wants to give back to the military community, and not everyone has to, right? But the people I believe that have the most impact are those that have the pedigree of having served X amount of years. Doesn't matter what your rank is. You could be a retired staff sergeant or a retired tech sergeant and have just as much gravitas in the civil sector. Is it important to give back? I believe so. Should you give back if you have the time and the love for it? I absolutely believe so. I actually sit on a uniform services advisory board for Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's a medical company, right? It's the folks that do medical insurance for most of our GS employees. And the reason I agreed to it is because I don't have to do anything but help educate on benefeds.gov. So you probably don't know what benefeds is. Most military people don't. It's the same insurance portal that every government civilian uses to get their health, their dental, and their vision. What they didn't tell us, and they still don't tell us, not a good job anyway, if you have a child, right, and they wear glasses, as an airman first class, you can buy you can buy vision insurance for your kid through benefeds.gov. I could have saved like $5,000 on my daughter's glasses by paying $3 a month. So I did the math. I could have spent maybe $400 over 2 decades, or I eventually ended up spending thousands of just $150 for eyeglass prescription, $150 for the actual appointment. She wanted contacts, she wanted different frames, she wanted the expensive type of lenses. I could have saved so much money if I just knew that the federal government allowed active duty service members to get vision insurance in the same way our GS employees do. Had no idea, none. So then I go around for this board and I try to educate as best as I can. And I post about it on social media as well. If you retire, you can also get dental insurance as well through that same portal that the government offers because, this is something you don't know, Vanity. When you retire from the Air Force, your dental and your vision are gone. They just disappear. You don't have them anymore. You still have TRICARE, so you can get seen for like your health and your medicine and your, your general exams. But TRICARE does not cover going to the dentist. TRICARE does not cover the, ophthalmologist. It just goes away. So the option, especially if you look at any transition tracker, it'll say now enroll in benefeds.gov. But the crazy part is you could have done that 20 years ago.
Okay.
You were not auto enrolled. There are more horror stories out there of people who retire and they break a tooth like right after they get out of the military. And now they got a $1,500 root canal bill, but you got to get that insurance.
Yeah.
The more you know.
No. All right. So if you can leave our listeners with the most important thing for today, what would you leave them with?
So, I had a military coin that I had made that I gave you one when I had them made. And on the back of it, it's what my supervisor when I was in Afghanistan told me during our feedback session. Yeah, we were doing feedbacks in Afghanistan. Like that didn't even make any sense. But yeah, so I was in charge of 13 or 14 joint service members, equal shares of the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force. And it was my first time running a joint team in a combat zone. And so we kept the feedback very short, right? Because she needed something to be able to say, oh yeah, I gave Sergeant David his feedback. And I had gone to her the night before and I was just complaining. I was like, these Marines are really nice, but I think they're going to hurt me. These soldiers don't listen to me. The sailor doesn't even show up on time. Like he's too far away from water. I have no idea what the situation is. And the airmen listen to me, but they're always distracted by what the other service members are doing. And obviously I'm joking a little bit about the drama between the service members, but I was more afraid for them getting hurt. 2 weeks before, one of my soldiers ended up getting awarded the Purple Heart as well. She got shrapnel in the back of the leg from a rocket blast, right? But she was able to get medevaced out. But that fear factor of me getting hurt in the past and her getting hurt freaked me out, right? So I was not I was not myself during that time, but I had to turn my brain and my heart off for things like that because we are in that war zone. She wrote me on my feedback form, she wrote, "There are opportunities in every challenge." And that's all she wrote. And I read it and I said, this is some BSery. Like there's got to be more to this. And she says, "I just want you to think about it and come back to me tomorrow." So I thought about that phrase, good 24 hours. There are opportunities in every challenge. And there are, right? Anytime something knocks you down, it's another way to grow. Anytime something doesn't go your way, it's an opportunity to prove yourself wrong. And if you get stuck behind someone like a bad supervisor, a bad commander, bad first sergeant, bad chief, bad anyone, bad section NCOIC, that's an opportunity to do the exact opposite when you take their job down the line. Because there are truly opportunities in every challenge. And I'll leave you with this last anecdotal thing that I usually share at most of the AFSA engagements. So I was a tech sergeant about to put on master, and my master sergeant at the time, we're not going to use his real name, so I'll just call him Jacob. Jacob told me that everything that I was doing was wrong, even though, by the TO, everything I was doing was correct. And I said, "Oh, okay, that's fine. If you think everything I'm doing is wrong, it's fine." And so I never talked back to him. I just did what I was told, but I did it according to how the AFI and the TO would say that I needed to do it. This guy ragged on me for like an entire year, and I never let his cynicism get to me. A year later, I got promoted again, and now I was the master sergeant. So now we're master sergeants together. Guy still didn't respect me. Still thought the way I was doing things was incorrect. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I knew that I was right. And I never judged him harshly, never held it against him, other than in the back of my head saying, there's got to be better things to do with your time than to put negativity toward me. But that's okay, because I'm going to be all right. There are opportunities in every challenge, right? I don't see him for 4 or 5 years after we separate. We're both master sergeants at the time. As you know, I kind of gotten promoted a little faster than normal. So I went from master to chief kind of quick, right? So then I come back to the unit, and guess who's there? That master sergeant. And that master sergeant sees me in civilian clothes, and he goes, "I can't believe you're back." And I said, "Yeah, I'm back." And he said, "Well, hopefully you do things better this time, because I expect to see this, this, and this." And I said, "Oh, really? Okay, that's fine." He didn't know that he was a direct report to me, the chief at the time. So that was humorous to me. But I never told him that I didn't value his opinion. I wasn't trying to be mean to him. But what I did do is I said, "Hey, Jacob, I will see you tomorrow. If you can do me a favor, just show me where the chief's office is, because I need to go see him." Right. So the following day, he shows me, and this was just me being a little childish. He takes me to my office, right? Because I'm still in civilian clothes. And I said, "Yeah, I just want to report in, just let you know I'm here. I'm going to do some house hunting." And we get to the door, and he knocks on the door, and he says, "Oh, the chief's not here." And so I pulled my key out and I opened the door, and I said, "Oh, the chief is here. Let's go inside." So that's the story I like to share about being humble, being respectful, and potentially waiting something out so you can get to your desired end state.
It's awesome. He probably tell that story too.
So here's the best part about it, though. He will never say a bad thing about me, not necessarily in context to, the way he thinks I operate at the job, but I never mistreated him. And what I've done is I've changed the culture in his head. He then has to go back and pause and see this opportunity in the challenge that he created for himself. How do I now get into good graces with the chief, right? And he did. And he told me probably 4 or 5 months later, he's like, "I was such an idiot. I am so sorry." I was like, "Listen, that's on you. That's who you're going to be. But your actions don't have bearing on me unless I let them."
Yeah. So I do want to share this story with you because I don't know if I'm gonna get the opportunity to any other time. The pit was named in thought of you. So I watched the episode that you hijack passing the torch on.
Well, very good with
And
Martin
then
Foster.
yeah, it was I watched the whole thing. It was amazing. And they were talking about you guys were talking about how like a lot of conversations used to happen in the smoke pit and
Hmm.
now people don't smoke anymore. So those conversations don't really happen, which also goes back to networking. So I just want to say thank you for the inspiration for the name and thank you so much for coming on and thank you for being a great person.
No, I would say thank you for being a great person. The fact that you are taking time out of your day, even at senior NCO, in temporary lodging, trying to record this, and it's late. People don't know this, but this is pretty late at night on both of our accounts. The fact that you are volunteering your time, which is valuable, because it's the only commodity you can't get more of, to give back to our community, to give back to our airmen, and to give back to AFSA, that speaks volumes about the person that I have learned to love and trust over the years, which is you. So thank you.